go from that to good old-fashioned books, and the achievements and contributions of Africa to the world are not usually celebrated. But author Nthebe Molope is doing just that. In his new book titled An Evolutionary Review on Black Education, Molope delves into the advent of missionary education and Bantu education on the continent. To tell us more about his book, well, he's here today. Nthebe, good morning, and thanks for coming in on the day of your launch as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the book. I mean, it sounds very academic, it sounds very clever, very smart. So an evolutionary review on black education, what exactly is in that book?
Well, there's 5 things that I basically go through in terms of the book. One is knowledge systems in Africa from antiquity, as well as education that was happening then. To look at on the ground surface, when you look at the different structures from the stone circle, which is in Mpumalanga, which is dating about 75,000 years old, which has got stones that have got even openings that are showing that they were actually used as wheels those years back. And looking at the pyramids, and incidentally there's a pyramid just down the road in Barberton that very few people know about.
Imagine that.
And pyramids scattered throughout the continent. And if you think of the technique of making up that type of a structure, you know, gets you thinking. And if you look at the conical structure in Zimbabwe, in the old Monomotapa. So all of that attests to some knowledge systems that were there in Africa long before the colonial systems arrived.
So you're looking at what Africa's not been given credit for?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what's been stolen or been passed off as somebody else's work?
Yes. And also the desecration that actually happened. I mean, there's a lot of damage and destruction that was made of some of the knowledge systems that were there in Africa. I mean, if you look at the Sphinx, all the noses that were cut off because they looked like mine, you know, they actually reflected the continent. And people were not very happy to see that, because it was actually showing the people that actually made up that type of history and knowledge.
So they wanted to literally just remove any sign of
remove
of
any evidence of that. And then I go through and I look at what happened with missionary education through missionary schools that came through. The number of people, I give praise to a whole lot of people that came through the system, from your Nelson Mandela, your Pixley Kaise Kaseme, your Sol Plaatje, you know, all of those, Dr. Abi Xuma, you know, Langal Balele Dube, I mean, started a newspaper in 1900. Can you believe it? And all of those things are not, you know, we're not giving enough praise to in terms of what those people have done. I mean, Charlotte Maclaike, who incidentally was taught by W.E.B. Du Bois, the first person to get the first black person to get a PhD in Harvard. And Maclaike went on to do all the contributions that he did. And basically I give credit to all of that, and then look later into what happened in terms of our teachers and teaching systems here.
I see that, and it says that you celebrate teachers, encouraging them to continue their plight, contributing to the life of the African children, where you also do a comparison of missionary education and Bantu education. Very quickly, if you can just summarize for us what that comparison is and what you talk about when you do that.
True. I mean, I don't give any praises to Bantu education because of what it was intended. I mean, it was very clear when Verwoerd was saying that it was intended to make sure that they can develop black people to be hewers of wood and, you know, basically to be just menial people. But when you look at what the Bantu education system, there are certain things that we could have taken out of it. I mean, for instance, one of the things that we had and that I talk about is that you had exit processes out of it. You could have a person completing what was then standard 5, getting out of the system, or what was then standard 8, which was called JC, and people would do basic nursing or basic teaching or get into some other job structure, not necessarily paying very good, but there was some exit structure that was there. And then you had matric. And if you look also at the missionary education, most of our parents who finished school at about then standard 5 had a very good command of the English language, had a very good understanding of things around them. And when you look at people now in our grade 4, I mean, the PIRLS tests that are done internationally show that our children come out of school being technically illiterate. They read and they're not able to understand what they're reading.
So that comparison is now with the current education
Absolutely.
system. So it's missionary,
Absolutely.
Bantu, and then where we are
Correct.
at the moment.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So the launch happening today, for those who are, where is it happening?
It's happening at Jabavu Library in Soweto. That's also a way of trying to get people into reading, get into the habit of getting back into school and getting interest into reading. And in fact, incidentally, one of the things that made me to write the book was I was keenly interested in why is it that almost all of our history is not written by us, not written by black people. You know, I look at almost all of Nelson Mandela's books are not written by black people.
Yeah.
I don't think that you know, all of the people that lived with Mandela, from Kunu to Mvezo to Robben Island, you know, not one of them can be having an interest in writing that. So people of another race, and I'm not being disparaging to you,
but there are certain things that are...
They must be having a certain interest in writing
yes.
that, because some of the history is actually deliberately distorted in the way that it is written.
Okay, well, we don't want to give away too much. We don't want to give away too much of
Absolutely.
what's in your book. So don't give away everything, because you want them to come and buy this today. Okay,
certainly.
Thanks very much. That's
You're
author
welcome.
Nthebe Molope. His book, An Evolutionary Review on Black Education, sounds very fascinating. Thank you very much for your time.